All right, guys, can I have your attention, please? My name is Miss Brooke, and
I'm Mr. Brendan.
And we are from the University of Kansas. We are studying to become teachers, kind of like Mr. Forsyth over here. So what we're going to be talking about today is Quantrill's Raid. How many of you have heard about that before? Raise your hand. Okay. How about one or two of you raise your hands and maybe want to give like a description to your classmates who don't know? What's you?
Basically this guy Quantrill, he rode in on the horse and destroyed parts of Lawrence, main part being the Eldridge, one of the parts, and the Eldridge is this kind of inn hotel, and every time it burned down, they rebuilt it one story higher, and I forget how many times, but it got to be really big, and he came back and he raided multiple times.
Yeah, I think we learned last class actually that the Eldridge Hotel is burnt out many times. So yeah. What about you in the back?
So William Quantrill was with slavery.
Yes.
And so when he doesn't like that Lawrence is strong for anti-slavery, so he comes in and raids it, and a bunch of buildings get burnt down, and there was many different ways people had to hide from him.
Yes.
And his soldiers.
Yeah, that was a really good description. What about you?
I'm pretty sure there's this well behind somebody's house, and they had to go hide in it, and they died inside the well.
Yeah, you depending on which article you get coming up, we'll actually learn about. They'll mention I don't know if it was a general or a colonel who actually was hiding in there and died from hiding in the well. What about you, Kenneth?
I think he came into Lawrence, he raided Lawrence, and a whole bunch, he killed a whole bunch of men. I think it was just men.
Mm-hmm.
And he killed a whole bunch of other people, and burned down buildings and
all of you guys are exactly right. So what we're gonna have you guys do today, we're gonna have let's see here. Probably these first three tables, you're gonna get probably the Confederate side of the story or a account of it, and then the back three tables are gonna be the Union. And so you're just gonna read through it first, and then once you're done reading, we're gonna talk about in your groups. Probably each of your tables talk about the important parts and just write it down, and then we'll start putting them up on the board. Does anybody have any questions about the activity or anything like that? All right.
You want copy? Master copy?
Yes. Confederate up here.
So we have to record each other teach. So I have to juggle the camera and.
Nope.
You know about it?
I don't know.
Oh, it's been such a long time since I last saw you. Yeah, remember when I was at Sunset Hill, the Boys and Girls Club? 3 years ago?
I can't remember yesterday.
Amen.
She goes, yeah, she's right there, and I just walked out, and I was like, what?
I've just been focusing on you because I don't want to be awkward.
No, that's what I was just like. If you want to, you can.
I mean, I'm just I don't know if I should be recording people talk.
All right, I hope everybody's reading, and once you're done reading, you can start talking in your groups about what are the most important parts of the article. So yeah, I only want to hear conversations about the Quantrill's Raid.
Cincinnati is such a weird word.
This report was written by the
Stop. On the 20th of August, a body between 300 and 400 crossed the state line at a time. Riding all night, they reached Lawrence.
What are you laughing at?
They dashed each town with shooting everybody they saw. Surprisingly, the hotel at every point where a rally hustle was seized at once, and the ruffians then began the work of destruction. Some of the citizens into the fields and ravines, and some into the woods. But the larger portion could not escape at all. The number of these was shot down and not removed immediately. In many cases, the bodies were left in the burning wilderness.
Oh shit.
The rebels. This is Star Wars.
I'll give it to like 2.
The rebels entered the place about 5 o'clock and left.
It looks like this. I'm assuming reading like groups of reading.
140 streets and about 30 desperately losing. The main street was all burned, but 2 stories. Thus, about 75 business houses were destroyed. Nearly 100 residents. They destroyed something near 2 million property, 80 widows, and 250 as a result of their 4 hours of work. Scenes of brutality which have been
Every single male inhabitant. Wait, did they actually kill every single male inhabitant that lives in Lawrence?
Pretty sure, yeah.
Probably there.
Maybe there were like a couple people who did escape, but it was a good amount of them.
Sun came up and mingles them.
Always focus on the mangles and
Wouldn't you? See where they
maybe not the mangle part. I don't like the mangle part.
Such a freaking bully.
Let's lower our voices, guys. Lower them just a little bit.
How many groups are still working? A couple of you guys?
Okay. Yeah, be sure
About
you're
5 more
writing down,
minutes.
like, with your group, just like one group consensus of.
What are the main points? What,
Yeah, what
do
are
you
the
think are
important
important?
parts?
Oh, just like on a piece of
Piece of
paper.
paper. I don't remember.
Yeah, I think you said.
And then he was like, 86 in his corner.
Jared should eat a Tide Pod.
Just a little shout out.
So it's gonna be like,
Shout out to you, Professor O'Brien.
What's going on over there? I heard something about Tide Pods.
Write down the
Oh, I didn't tell them we were recording.
I'm pretty sure they know we're recording.
Okay. Hopefully it doesn't play. I feel bad. I totally forgot that part. I don't think it's required that we tell them. I think it was more of a courtesy thing, but like I feel like they seem fine with it.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing? Is everybody done?
About 2 more minutes. Finish up.
Killed too many people. Shut up, Jared.
Lower
It's not
down.
funny. It's just a joke. It's a joke.
There are a couple of them still working on it. I never believe them when they're like, oh yeah, we're still working on it.
The worst mass shooting in US history was 50.
Are you gonna write? I don't mind writing if you want to.
All right. Since you did it last time.
I don't care. That's up to you.
Well, where can you put the cup?
I'm just like, please let me help you.
Alright, I think we should.
All right, guys, let's bring it all back together here. Guys, everybody listen to me? All right. Okay, so let's start with the Confederate side. Let's talk about like some of the important things that you guys came up with as a group that we could put up on the board. Go ahead.
The Quantrill guy, he brought 300 men and dashed into the streets of Florence, and he killed 50 to 60 African Americans, 200 white abolitionists, and $2 million worth of property. Were fearful rates of loss, so they lost them.
Okay, so some of the important things we can take from that is that like about 250 men were killed and $2 million and
Can you repeat those numbers?
50 to 60 African Americans and 200 white abolitionists.
250?
200.
$2 million worth of property.
It's 200. Okay, so 50 to 60 African Americans killed, 200.
Abolitionists?
Yeah, and then $2 million in damages. All right. What about you?
They killed all the male inhabitants.
That is very important, I feel like, to put down. What about you?
Every hotel except the city hotel was burned.
Very interesting as well. Any other ones that we got from the Confederate side? What about you?
A guy hid in a well and he died.
Do you remember what the guy's name was?
Yes, the guy's name was General Coramal.
Gotcha.
Calamari?
Is it Cornwall? Oh, yep.
General Collamer died in a well because I don't know if it was the fire of the smoke, if he just broke his ankles and he fell down, if he didn't have enough food and he just got stuck.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look that up personally. Did he suffocate?
He suffocated by gas.
Oh wow. Okay, I did not know that. All right, what about you?
Like after they destroyed everything, they like quietly walked away.
Okay, so they quietly marched away.
But then they were followed by General Lane.
Okay, so General Lane followed them back into Missouri.
But he didn't.
Okay, so I feel like that's important. Like they didn't just immediately just go after him. They went after him, but like they didn't immediately, butt heads kind of thing. What about you?
Every hotel except the city hotel burned down.
Okay. Yeah, we had already mentioned that before.
It's fine. I'm still.
This is what I should have wrote. Anyway, okay, let's move on to the Union side. How about you guys?
Here, let me finish the Confederate first.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So what were you going to say?
Okay, so, what was it? 143 were left dead in the streets,
Okay.
and about 30 were desperately wounded. And the main street was all burnt, but 2 stories.
Yeah, so did it say Mass Street or Main Street?
2 stories. It says the main street.
So I'm assuming that that's Mass Street, right? That's on the Union.
They destroyed something near 2 million of property, left 80 widows.
So yeah, they're talking about Mass Street. So like everybody knows what Mass Street is. So.
Except me.
All right. Anything else? Okay. What about you?
We have 4 hours to kill.
So yeah, this started at like 5 o'clock and it ended around 9 or 10 p.m. So yeah, about 4 hours it took for them to like kind of just burn the whole city down and kill all the men. Anything else from the Union side that you felt was important to include? What about you?
75 businesses were destroyed and nearly 100 residences.
Yeah. So yeah, like the Confederates were talking about, like they did a lot of damage. What about you?
They left 80 widows and 250 orphans.
Yeah. It's also important to note that I think at the end it was talking about that women and children were not hurt at all. I feel like that's very important. We should include too. What were we gonna?
I was gonna ask if they killed the little kids that were guys.
I'm not sure on that one. I'm assuming when it says women and children, it's just talking about children in general. So like, I don't think they went and killed. We'll talk about why they were, or we'll ask you guys why you think that women and children were saved compared to the men, but we'll talk about that a little bit. Let me know when you're done ready. Anything else from the Union side that we want to talk about, or Confederate, like any things that you guys want to put up on the board? And when he's done wrapping up, I'm going to call on a couple of you who can like spot some similarities and differences between the two sides. Did you have something to say?
There is the men that they killed were they were mangled. When the people that they killed were mangled.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like destroyed.
I feel like that means like, I don't know, what's a good word to like describe being mangled? I don't know.
Like you get crumpled.
Yeah, it didn't necessarily just mean that they would be shot. It might mean that they would be beaten or
Trampled
disfigured.
Trampled by horses.
Ew!
Or maybe get crushed by something.
Alright, anyway, okay, let's go back.
Something there was only one body part from here to go here.
It learns.
Alright, guys. Who can spot out like a similarity and difference between the two from what we have up here on the board? Lorenzo?
They were both kind of killed. Let's just get the obvious out of the way. They both killed a lot of people, but I don't know if they left anybody wounded on. They seemed very nitpicky about that for Confederate, because reading through here, it didn't say anybody was wounded. It just said they were either killed or not killed.
And see, that's super interesting because when you think about it, the Confederate side, they wanted to hype themselves up. They wanted to go home and be like, this is how many people we killed. They don't really care about who they mangled. They wanted to say, this is how many people we killed. And whereas like the Union was there after the fact to actually count all the bodies and like see who was alive even after like sustaining injuries. So, all right, what about you?
Never mind.
Never mind. All right, anybody else?
Never mind.
They didn't, the Confederate side didn't talk about like how many like women and children were affected by it.
Yeah. So like I said, well, let's talk about this. Why do you guys think that the women and children were spared? What about you? Yeah.
Like, just the way that they think of the women and children, just the way that they think they can't fight back and they can't do anything about it, and also because they produce offspring.
Very true. Yeah. So this is like during the Civil War. So obviously, the women and children weren't going to be able to go fight, whereas the men were. But also, there's another important part. You want to take a guess?
Because men tended to have more power over like what happened in the government systems, and so if they killed all the abolitionist men, then there would be less to pass more like non-slavery laws.
Yeah, so I think Mr. Forsyth probably mentioned to you guys before popular sovereignty, which is what was going on with the Kansas-Nebraska Act. So, meaning it was based on votes. So who can vote at that time? Women can't. Women didn't get to vote for another 100 or so years. So it was mostly the men that they were trying to take out because Lawrence was such a stronghold for free state. So knock those out, you get more votes for like the slave state, which is what Missouri, which is where Quantrill and all his men came from. Like that was the mission of the whole thing, besides like burning down the town and getting rid of the Free State stronghold in the first place. So what about you?
Wasn't it like when they got raided, they had their guns locked up?
I'm not sure about that. Do you know about that?
No, I'm not sure.
I know they were it was really hard for them to defend themselves because obviously.
Yeah, they had their guns put up, locked away.
I remember.
Oh wow, I did not know
a
that.
while back.
Because they haven't,
Where the
got raided.
where the public pool is where they had their guns locked up.
I did not know that. That's a good point. But yeah, no. I'm trying to think of any other similarities or differences? What are you?
Confederates, that from what I know, the Confederates didn't say anything about when it happened.
Yeah, I don't think it did. Let's see here. Yeah, they just were talking about how they just kind of.
They gave
dashed
a
in.
general date,
Yeah.
but the Union account did have a more specific time.
Yeah. Yeah, the Union actually, was talking about on August 20th, the day before, how Quantrill and his men were crossing the state line and got there by daybreak of the 21st, which is when they finally got into Lawrence and started attacking around, I think it was 4 or 5 p.m. So, what about you?
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, I was wondering if maybe a stray bullet went and hit a woman or a child, what did they do? They just leave it?
I'm not sure. I don't know if actually any women were wounded. That's probably more of a specific research question that I don't know if we could Google at some point or if you want to Google on your own time. But yeah, I don't think so. Like I said, they were not after the women and children. They were strictly going after the men.
They seem like perfectionists that would kind of really nitpick, but control, why don't we just kill everyone? No. Also, another thing, what reason why they might have not killed the women and children is because they didn't really need any of of course a lot of the women and children didn't like slavery too. They were anti-slavery, but a lot of them didn't really lead any anti-slavery
Right.
groups.
There was no leaders, and they didn't have a right to vote. They had no really power. But what was your second question?
What did they do with the dead bodies after the Well, I just
I
want
don't
to
know.
where
Mr.
they
Forsyth?
Well, I mean, a lot of them were burned, but yeah.
I was just wondering because
I'm sure they did.
It's a whole street littered with bodies.
It took them 2 days to find everyone.
Oh, that's gotta be something
No,
smelly.
they were all over around the area.
So yeah. Also, I think we already touched on this. The $2 million in damages. Like I said, everybody knows what Mass Street is, right? Everybody's been down there.
Except him.
Okay, well, you live in Lawrence. You need to go check out Mass Street. Definitely a huge Lawrence staple. Oh, you're new? Definitely need to check it out while you're here. It's a great historical part of Lawrence. So from your guys' hey guys, let's come back. From your perspective, how would you feel if this happened to you guys right now? I know obviously this was back in 1800s, so you can't relate too much, but just imagine everything on Mass Street just burning. How would that make you feel, guys? Sad, scared?
Yeah, they would get Cold Stone and Silas and Maddie's.
Yeah. No ice drinks. Or Jefferson's, yeah. What?
No tokens.
Yeah.
Game Nut, they would get Game Nut too. No more video games.
I'd be okay without They took out the gamer's love, man.
Alright, let's see here. I think I covered everything.
Where'd the game nut go?
No more Friday Night Magic. England is my city.
I already touched on it. Hey guys, quiet down real quick. I already covered that.
I have some costumes.
Questions? No? No? Okay.
So about the thing, if we got raided today, would they kill, boys at this age?
I'm not sure. I'm not completely sure on that. I'm assuming it depends. I feel like on the age, like if they were probably teenagers, maybe, because I don't know what the voting age at that time was. Probably still 18, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, you gotta think that people aren't living as long, and so if you are, like, kids your age wouldn't necessarily be seen as kids, and so you probably would have, this age, there's a good chance that you might have been targeted.
So yeah, put that into perspective. Like at your age, they were doing 10 times more what they were doing, and they were considered adults. So that's super important to realize that what they were dealing with at the time. So also, I want to ask an overall question, guys. Guys, let's come together. So what do you think this event had to like do with the overall perspective of the Civil War going on, like around? Like, what do you think the rest of the United States was like? How does this event fit into the rest of the Civil War at the time?
Well, I'm not quite sure, but isn't it because so they were fighting over slaves, and I don't think that the war, what they were doing out of Kansas was about slaves, but they were fighting about, I can't remember.
They were fighting over if Kansas was going to be a free state or a slave state. So yeah.
Is that where the word free state came from?
Yes, that's why so many buildings in Lawrence are called Free State.
Watch yourself, Lily Otter.
Okay. Guys.
Well, it's people that are living in the same country killing other people that live in the same country, which is basically the Civil War as well.
Well, yeah, it's still the Civil War. Like this event happened during the Civil War, so yeah, that's how it fits in because this raid, raids were typical during wartime. Obviously, it was very obvious that free staters or abolitionists were going to go after people who had slaves, kind of like what he was talking about with John Brown and the opposite. So that brings up my next point. Quantrill was kind of, even though John Brown had already been gone by this point, he was already executed. Quantrill we kind of compare him to John Brown in the opposite. So he was on the slave side, whereas John Brown was the opposite. So that's a good connection to think about. What do you guys think are the similarities between the two?
They were both a tiny bit crazy.
Yeah? What about you?
They both killed people.
Yeah.
It's also important to remember that Missouri did not leave the Union during the Civil War, so Missouri was still a part of the Union. So it was not the Confederate Army so much that was doing this, it was just Confederate sympathizers in Missouri. But the state of Missouri was not actually a part of the Confederacy, even though it was a slave state.
Go ahead. Could you speak up a little bit? Yeah. They were both passionate and they had a fire for what they were doing. And, yes, they were, and also a good difference between the two of them is Quantrill and his men killed way more people than John Brown did. So that's another difference to think about. I'm not saying one is worse than the other, but you got to think about in perspective how many more men that Quantrill killed in his raid, let alone to what John Brown did.
Did they ever meet?
I don't know, did they ever meet? I doubt it.
Not in any documentation.
Hey, my name's John Brown. Hey, I am Control.
What else should I cover?
What did William Quantrill look like?
I imagine him as a French guy with a.
He does. I did look him up, and he does have a cool mustache, and it looks like he has a huge mouth. So I don't know. He's
A huge mouth.
It was. I don't know.
Maybe Mr. Forsyth could bring up a picture of him that we could.
Also, a little tidbit fact, guys, focus. Mr. Forsyth actually informed us on this that after Quantrill's raid, I don't remember how many years later, but Quantrill actually came back
Before.
to Lawrence. No, it was before or after?
Yeah, he was a teacher here in Lawrence.
I thought it was after.
He was a teacher in Lawrence before the raid.
So think about that. How crazy of a. So yeah, that is Cointreau.
Oh my goodness. You look rough. Who said that? Why are people saying because he's old. Jared, you don't say this kind of thing.
Also, you guys gotta remember there was no photography back then to like. Well, actually there was photography, but there was not like.
He does have.
That's like a. Is that a photograph or is that like a? Oh wow, that was really bad.
Your mouth is pretty. I got paid for doing this.
Cointreau was 27 when he died.
Yeah.
He was 25 when he attacked Lawrence.
Wait.
This is yours. How old was John Brown when he died?
He was exactly 50, I'm pretty sure.
I think you're right.
I said 30 something, 20 years.
Also, guys, I have a question for you. So, why or like, what do you think possessed the people like to come back and like rebuild Lawrence? Like, think about it, because like Lawrence probably wouldn't, like if Lawrence people just gave up, there would be no Lawrence. So, any thoughts on that?
Because it was like meaningful to them. Because it was like the place where like they went there, where abolitionists went to like fight for their rights and stuff, you know.
Yeah, no, like I was saying, it's a huge free state stronghold. So even though like their brothers, their husbands, their uncles, their grandfathers had been killed, they went back, and I'm sure people from, you know, the Union and other free states came back and like came together and rebuilt Lawrence because they felt they didn't want to like have all those men die in vain, kind of thing. So, you have a question?
I'm not really sure if you guys can answer this, but why did other people come and fight? I'm not sure. Well, because it was
like
4 hours. Oh yeah.
I think in one of the accounts it talks about how help troops were 6 hours away. Or six, yeah. I think it was, I don't remember what it was. But yeah, so like troops that could have helped them were 6 hours away, and probably by the time they could show up, or they did show up, they were gone. Because yeah, they did this in a matter of 4 hours. Like 3 to 4 hours. So, you have a question?
Lawrence has law in his name.
Yeah.
Boom.
You also have a question?
Guys, shh.
This all happened in Lawrence. It was such an important place in Kansas and history. Why didn't it become a capital?
That's a good question. I don't know why.
There was a like point in time where it could have been the capital, but they used it to make like a hospital.
I actually do not know that, but you're probably right. Honestly, that would be a question to look up on Google, because I personally do not know the answer to that. But that is something interesting to think about, because yeah, but at the same time, Topeka is super close by. And I think at one point Wichita was actually, was it Wichita or Kansas City that was the capital at first?
Why is it Kansas City?
Well, around Wyandotte was for a while a potential place. Okay, folks, you're being incredibly disrespectful.
Yeah, all right. Let's see. I think we have some time to pass out. Mr. Forsyth has, is this a book or is it kind of like a just collection of news?
It's a news.
Yeah, it was
Cool.
created by the LJ World in 2013.
And while Miss Brooke is handing that out, I'm gonna give you guys some candy for being.
I wouldn't have given it.
See, we're nicer than him, so be thankful. So you guys can just pick out whatever flavor you want.
Who gave me $1? These are like the Lawrence Journal World put together some stuff from Cointreau's raid in 2013.
Oh wait, you gotta find your address.
Please be careful with these.
Yeah, don't write on them.
Don't write in them. Don't drink them.
That's nasty. So, mine's 900 gigs.
Paying attention to anything else?
Actually, fine. Wait, hold on.
How do you do it too?
Mine's 900.
She said don't sprinkle.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Give us the sprinkle.
Thank you.
Aw, dang it.
You want to
You
share?
guys are slow.
Oh, I got it.
Alright. Thank
There's
you.
a lot of flavors to go over.
Also, I don't want these stickers to be a distraction from you guys looking through this because it has a lot of good stuff. I actually, when you guys are done kind of browsing, go to page 22 and 23. They have some artwork of Quantrill's raid that people depicted what it looked like. So yeah, if you're done like browsing, go check out page 22 and 23. You can like talk about like what you're seeing.
One, please.
I was kidding.
Thank you.
Me too. I would feel bad for the people about the horses.
I
Okay,
feel
horses were
bad.
killed too, you know.
I feel bad for any other animal that's killed.
Other than horses.
What about ants? Because they're animals. You know what else is animals? Humans.
Dogs.
Alright, after everybody gets the stuff, we're gonna look at the page 22 and 23.
Did everybody get a piece of candy?
Alright, everybody. Turn to page 22 and 23. We're kind of running low on time, and I want to discuss these artwork. So it's definitely, I think it's on page 23. Is like the two depictions. Did you have a question? Oh, okay. Once everybody gets there, if you guys have any like observations.
Called The Raid and Art.
It's on page 22.
There's a bunch of pictures and paintings.
I like this one because it has simple.
I like this one and that one.
So mostly the two on like page 23, the black and white ones. Like, what do you guys see? Like, what are you seeing in these like depictions of Quantrill's raid?
Fire. Fire.
Fire.
No problem, Kira.
What else do you guys see?
Horses?
Horses.
Wow, thanks, Maddie.
Thanks a lot.
Anything else?
Thanks a lot.
Dust.
Jared.
Fire.
Houses. Guns.
Raise your hand.
Did.
Men, good. Okay.
What was that noise? Lawrence?
Death. Yeah. No.
Dust. Like for
Oh, dust. Okay. Okay. So yeah.
Hi.
Also.
There's a lot of like fallen horses and fallen people in the pictures.
So yeah, this is depicting the chaos, the pure chaos that was going on. Men were getting killed, fire, damaged, chaos. That was what the point of this was. So if you take anything from that, remember that about Quantrill's raid, that it was meant to wipe out Lawrence.
The yellow ones are very morbid.
Is that?
Oh
wow.
The bones? I think his bones are on a table.
I really like this.
Which one?
Read the inscription.
Yellow. What's this guy? That's my favorite one, Jared, because of how simple it looks.
Some of the horses look
In there.
I think that's that one. Or maybe not.
Oh, Poncho.
I think that one, that one.
Okay. Oh yeah, it's depicting Quantrill and death. Like he was saying earlier, he died at 27. He did the raid when he was 25. So just 2 years later, he passed
How
away.
did he die? Just sickness?
He got shot.
That's oh, I thought he shot himself because he was gun on the table.
No, that's the gun that
Do you
killed
want him to live?
It's a good that's a good point. I did not know that he got shot, but yeah.
Well,
All right, it was nice meeting all you guys. I hope you have a great weekend.
Materials on the table, please.
What about these?
Leave those on the table.
Just leave them.
What about these?
Leave
Leave
them.
it on the table.
How about